Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bold Badass Business, where we bring you the badasses who are making the biggest difference in the world. And you all, today, I'm super excited to have here Marci Shimoff, who is a New York Times bestselling author. She's presented to many Fortune 500 companies. She's well known. Her works are translated into multiple languages. And more importantly, I have to tell you, I've watched her for a long time. I've been watching you, Marci, and enjoying what you do and the focus that you have on happiness. Because if people are happy, we bring peace to our planet. We bring peace here and we bring unity. So I'm thrilled to have you on the show and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you. And I love what you're doing with Bold Badass Business. It's fabulous.
Thank you. It's the BBB there. So triple B. Well, listen, let's just jump right in for everybody who's listening. And I think that people always want to know, what the heck got you into happiness? What
Mm,
was it that was that
yeah.
pivotal moment where you knew this is my life's work?
Yeah. Well, I'll take you back a little farther to before that pivotal moment because I think it's relevant because people are always asking me, well, Marci, you must have been born happy, right? And my answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was born depressed. I came out of the womb with what I call existential angst. I had a great family, but I just had this dark cloud around me. And I just felt depressed all of my growing up years. So when I was in my 20s, I decided that I was going to fix that. I was going to finally be happy. And I did what most people do. I set goals for myself. And I figured that once I reach those goals, that's it. I will be happy. And I'll just share with you my five goals that I wanted because I think people can relate. I wanted a successful career helping people. I wanted a fabulous husband or life partner, wonderful friends, a comfortable home, and the equivalent of Halle Berry's body. Now, I got four out of the five. I do not have Halle Berry's body, but I have a healthy body for which I'm grateful. And I'll tell you, Barnsley, I worked my tail off to get all of those ducks in a row so I could finally be happy. And I had a turning point moment. It was in 1998. At the time, I had three of my books in the top five on the New York Times bestseller list at the same time. I think it was actually the first time that perhaps had ever happened.
Wow.
And I was on top of the world. I had a great partner. I had great friends. I had a wonderful home. Everything was working. And I had just finished giving a talk to 8,000 women. And I had autographed 5,432 books. My client had hired a massage therapist for me to keep on autographing so that I could just keep on signing. And on one hand, I felt like an author rock star. But I will tell you that after signing that very last book, I went up to my hotel room, which was the penthouse suite that my client had gotten for me. And I walked over to these huge windows overlooking Lake Michigan. I was in Chicago. I
Mm.
took in that view and I turned around and I collapsed onto the bed and I burst into tears. And I burst into tears because I had everything I thought I needed on that list of mine. And I still felt that emptiness in my heart that I had felt as a kid. And I realized this was the end of the line. I could no longer fool myself into thinking that just the next thing was going to make me happy because I saw it did. It made me happy for a short period of time, but it didn't last. And so it was then that I committed to figuring out what would really make me happy. I did all of the research. I interviewed all of the researchers on happiness. I interviewed 100 what I called unconditionally happy people. I call them my happy 100. And I started doing what they did. And it worked. I would say that in a fairly short time, I went from what I call a D plus in happiness, if you were giving me a grade, to a solid A. And I'm still a work in progress, always working on it, but it's solid. And so that's why I am so passionate about sharing this with people, is because I know from my own experience that no matter where you are right now in your happiness level, you can be happier.
I love that, Marci. And I have to tell you, you're just making me think about when I was 16 and I made a decision, a conscious decision to be happy. I remember the moment. I was in high school and I had come out of a very dysfunctional background, very dysfunctional, with a father who was bipolar and alcoholic and a mother who was a rageaholic. And a brother who would beat up on me. So I got to decide at that moment that this stuff is not going to change me from being happy. In fact, it made me more determined to be happy than if those things had not happened.
Fabulous. I am so delighted that you shared that, because what you did is you chose to take responsibility for your happiness and not be a victim of your circumstances.
Did everybody hear that? Take responsibility for your environment, for your growing up. I wouldn't trade any of it. And when you have that kind of absolute determination to take whatever you've been given and turn it to good and use it to help others, to walk over the coals, so to speak, and turn around and then say you can come, which is what I think you've done, Marci, with telling your story about, the existential angst. Yes, I relate to
Yes.
that. And the depression and, feeling in a depressive fog. And so many people feel that way right now. It's incredible how many people are going to psychiatrists and psychologists, which is good, y'all. By the way, do it. I'm not saying don't do it, but what can people do? What can they do now,
Yeah.
Marci, that will change their view and help them to begin right now, today, to have happiness in their life and in their business?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question, is how do we get there? And so let me say one fundamental thing before we go there, and that is what I mean by happiness. So I do not mean what most people mean, I think. Most people are busy chasing after things so they can be happy. I call that happy for good reason. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong with having fabulous things. I'm all for that. But the problem with that is if you lose any of those, there goes your happiness. So what I'm about is called happy. I call it happy for no reason, which means you have an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances. So yes, stuff happens. People die. You're going to feel grief. You might get upset over things. I understand. That's totally fine. And people who are happy for no reason have an inner backdrop of peace and well-being amidst all of those ups and downs of life. And it allows us to be more resilient, to bounce back more, to be more creative. So that's what I mean by happiness. And I would just want to say one thing about the research, and then I'll go into the really practical. This to me was the most eye-opening. Science has cracked the happiness code. We actually know what it takes for people to be happier. And I say that should be headline news. Here it is. We've wanted this more than anything. From time immemorial, people have wanted to be happy, and we now know how to get there. So here's what science has found. We all have what's called a happiness set point, and it's like a thermostat setting. So no matter what happens to us, whether it's good or bad, we will hover around our happiness set point unless we do something consciously to change it. Now, I was not born with a high happiness set point. Some people are. Now, how's your set point determined? Your set point is 50% genetic. You're born with that piece. As I said, I didn't get the good genes on that one. It's 10% your circumstances. It's only 10%. That's such a
Wow.
tiny piece of the whole pie, and yet that's what everybody's running around to try to fix in order to be happier. But that's such a small piece of it. The other 40% is your habits of thoughts and behavior. That's where we have the power. There are specific habits of thoughts and behavior that will raise our happiness set point. And I'm going to take this one step further and say that piece that's genetic, there are scientists in the field of epigenetics, like Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief.
Yes.
And they say that genetic piece can be changed or influenced by changing our habits, which means that 90% of our happiness set point can be influenced by changing these habits. The only difference between happy people and everybody else is that they have different habits. So that's the key. And what I've found is that there are 21 main happiness habits, And these happiness habits fall into 7 main categories for us to focus on. And would you like me to go through those 7 categories?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm in my mind, I'm just loving this. I love positive psychology, Marci. You have to know, I love it. And I'm sure one of these has to do with generosity and being a giver, which is one of my, I'm sure there's one of these.
It does, as a matter of fact. It falls into one of the 7. That habit is one of the 21 habits, and it falls into one of the 7 main categories. So I'm going to go through these 7 main categories. And what I want you, Dr. Barnsley, and everybody here to do is I want you to identify which is your weakest, which is your Achilles heel, because that's where you're going to want to start. That's where you're going to get the most traction, by starting where you're the weakest. So now I know that it's hard for anyone to remember 7 of anything. So I created a little metaphor or an analogy for these habits. I call it building your inner home for happiness. And a home has 7 main components to it. It's got a foundation. It's got 4 corner pillars that the walls hang on. It's got a roof, and it's got a garden. And here's how this relates to our 7 main areas of happiness. The foundation is taking responsibility for your happiness, what we've just talked about, showing up not as a victim in life, a victim of your circumstances. And you're a victim if you're blaming, shaming, or complaining, but showing up instead as a victor and saying, no matter what my circumstances are, I can take charge of my happiness. So that's the foundation. Then there's the pillar of the mind, and that has to do with our thoughts. Most people have very happiness-robbing thoughts. So we want to look at our thoughts. Then there's the pillar of the heart. Do you live with love, with kindness, with generosity, like you just spoke of, with that desire to give? I've never met a happy person who had a closed heart. They live with open hearts. So that's the pillar of the heart. Then there's the pillar of the body. And this has to do with the biochemistry of happiness. Do you have enough of the hormones, of the chemicals of happiness? Do you have enough serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, the happiness chemicals? That, by the way, was my weakest link. And then there's the pillar of the soul. And that has to do with your connection to the bigger energy of the universe. Do you feel connected with, I don't care whether you call it God, the divine, spirit, creative intelligence, nature, doesn't matter what you call it, but that bigger energy of life. Then there's the roof. And the roof of your home for happiness is your life purpose. Are you living an inspired life? Are you doing what you are here on this planet to be doing? Are you waking up in the morning going, yes, I'm living my purpose? And then finally, there is the garden. And the garden is who you surround yourself with. Are you surrounded by people who uplift and inspire you? I call them the roses and the gardenias of your garden. Or are you surrounded by people who drag you down, toxic people who are very negative? I call them the weeds in your garden.
And poison ivy.
Poison ivy, exactly. So those are the 7 main areas. The foundation is taking responsibility for your happiness, the mind, your thoughts, the heart, your feelings, the body, your biochemistry, the soul, your spirit. Then there's your life purpose, and there's your relationships. So I'd like everyone to identify, where are you the weakest? And we're going to start with you, Barnsley.
Oh my gosh, I just love this. And I've done my little, you'll love this. I'm taking notes over here.
Excellent.
That's the academic in me. I always say I'm a recovering academic. So I definitely would agree with you that for me, it is the body. It is absolutely the body, because my soul is strong. I am on my purpose. I am clear. Well, we can always have more people in our garden, I think. So we can always have more people in our garden, but I want to be responsible and say that I really believe it is the body piece. And so one thing that's really important for me in my business is that I have completions. So I get that dopamine hit, that comes from completing something, whether it's a book. I've just finished my first children's book, whether it's a book, or thank you, or it's a phone call I didn't want to make, or whatever. It's organizing the office. because I'm very ADHD. Some of you can probably relate to that. I've got piles. I know where the stuff is, but if anybody else walked in here, they'd see Hiroshima. So basically, I've got to really take responsibility for my body. And that means, like you said, exercise. That means, some dancing, walking, whatever. That means good food. That means vitamin D and magnesium, because those are directly linked to depression. There is depression in my family, you know. I'm
As
guessing
there is
probably
in
like yours.
mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is in mine as well. And so, can I give you a very little known process that people can do to
Yeah.
help create more serotonin? Serotonin is
Yes.
perhaps the main happiness chemical. If you're craving a lot of sugar, it's because you're low in serotonin, most likely. And serotonin is what gives us that sweetness in life.
Mm.
Well, I love simple, practical practices. And so, this is a simple practice that I learned from a Qigong master named Gilles Marin. Oops, I'm sorry. Something went off screen.
You're
Um,
fine.
okay. So I learned this from Gilles Marin. And Gilles said that if you go outside and you face the sun with your eyes closed, super important that your eyes are closed. And with your eyes closed, and I'll tell you what to do in a minute if you don't have sun, but if you just face the sun with your eyes closed and you imagine the rays of the sun coming in through your eyes and through your third eye area and hitting the pineal gland in the center of your brain and warming it up and lighting it up. You do that for 2 to 3 minutes, a couple of times a day. And within a week, you have completely shifted your serotonin levels in your body.
Beautiful. All right. 2 to 3 times a day within a
2
week.
times a day for 2 to 3 minutes
2
each.
to 3 minutes. Okay.
Eyes closed, sun warming up the pineal gland. Now, if you don't have sun, even if it's cloudy, the sun's rays are coming through. So you can just imagine the sun's rays. But if it's raining, then you can actually, it's not as powerful, but you can just look at nature, anything in nature, anything beautiful in nature, a tree, some flowers, a plant will also help create more serotonin. And what's great about more serotonin is that it also, when you have more serotonin, you also have more melatonin, and melatonin helps your sleeping. And the more melatonin you have, the better you sleep, the more serotonin you'll have. Your happiness today is more dependent on the quality of sleep that you got last night than it is on your income level or your marital status. So this is all a cycle that really helps. And why does it matter? Why does it matter for our businesses? When we are healthier and more, and by health, I mean vibrant and alive and feeling like we're in the flow of life. When we are healthier, our businesses are more successful. It's been found that happier people on average make more than $1 million more over the course of their lifetime. They're 35%. They have, if you're in sales, you're 35% better at sales. You'll get more sales. In general, you are a better worker in every way. Your business is more creative. It's got benefits in all areas of your life.
That's beautiful. I love that. And yes, I have heard this from other friends of mine who are energy healers. I've taught Reiki for like over 30 years. Like I did it when it wasn't even, people thought it was just weird.
You are a trendsetter. You are a pioneer. You are ahead of the curve.
I love hearing that from you, because you absolutely are. And I will gratefully receive it. So basically, I've heard people say, yeah, go out and do that. And think about it. We are completely deracinated. Those of you listening, we are so not in nature enough. And so no wonder we have this epidemic of people going and shooting people in post offices and schools and whatnot. No wonder we have this craziness happening in certain areas, which is really just a way of us seeing that there's something wrong in our society. There's something that needs to be changed. And it could be as easy as going outside, closing your eyes, and letting your pineal gland be warmed up. I love that. Hey, by the way, Marci, in case you don't know about this, this is really cool. And y'all listening, I just found out about saffron. I was doing some research about saffron because I found myself, I have seasonal affective disorder, and I
Yes.
found myself getting like, a couple of months ago. And luckily, whenever I get that way, I just acknowledge it and do what needs to be done. So I was researching and I found saffron, which is an Ayurvedic, it's an herb used in Indian food. And they said, oh, it's so expensive. I found it on Amazon. I got 240 doses for less than $20, you all. One a day. That's it. One, it does not, if you are on antidepressants, it doesn't actually cause any interactions. You'll have to check with your doctor if you're on something else. But there in the research, they did talk about that. And it has definitely helped me focus, but it also has a mood uplifting bonus to it. So
So
I'll just
one
share that.
strand of saffron, that's all you do? One strand?
It is what you could take it, I don't know because I'm using a capsule, Marci. The
Oh, I see.
capsule is like 80, I think it's 88.5 milligrams, but I don't know if you were using the actual herb because that's going to be a lot more concentrated. So
So
definitely research.
saffron, not turmeric, saffron.
Not turmeric. Turmeric, though, is great for
Yeah,
inflammation. I mean,
right.
turmeric is great for inflammation, also for sleep. Since you mentioned melatonin, turmeric can help with that. And most disease, dis-ease, we've got the psychological component, but we've also got the physical component, right? And turmeric, and that is inflammation. And so turmeric really
Yeah.
helps bring that down.
Well, I am
But
so
turmeric can
excited
also
for you.
help. It's also a natural antidepressant.
I am so excited for this. I've studied Ayurveda for 40 years and
Oh,
I
so
have
good. I
not
didn't know
heard saffron and I am thrilled. I'm going to go get myself some
that.
saffron.
Woo-hoo! You'll have to let me know how it goes. I
I
mean,
will.
I love when there is something like that. Years ago, I remember in graduate school, y'all have heard me talk about graduate school. I have way too much education. And I remember that I got, I was just working 3 jobs to put myself through. And I was the first woman PhD in my family. And it was just grueling. And I was a big heart. And being in that environment was like, because everybody was living up here. But I remember using St. John's wort, and it worked
Yeah.
for a while, but it had
Yeah.
some side effects. And so
Yeah.
it's really nice to find things like saffron, SAMI. They're different things, and the turmeric that you mentioned as
Yeah,
well.
and in Happy for No Reason, I actually have in the chapter on the body, we've got a mood. It's there's a wonderful woman named Julia Ross
Mhm.
who wrote a book called The Mood Cure, and it's got the questionnaire in there to see which one you might be low in and what you can do for it. So I love the wonderful natural ways we can help our bodies. And you also mentioned the mind piece. So I do want to spend some time talking about that because of all of the pieces of all of those 7 areas,
Mhm.
that's the one I would say is universally the the hardest for people to deal with, our minds. And so can I share some ideas about how we can shift our minds, our actually create new
Absolutely.
neural pathways in the brain? So let me just tell you, and you probably know this, but I find this so fascinating. The average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. And for the average person, 80% of our thoughts are negative. Psychologists call it the negativity bias. We
Mhm.
inherited it from our caveman ancestors who needed to remember the negatives in order to survive. My dear friend and colleague Rick Hansen calls it the Velcro Teflon syndrome. Our minds are like Velcro for the negative, they just stick to us, but like Teflon for the positive, they slide off. You get 10 compliments in a day and one criticism. What do you remember at the end of the day? The criticism, right? Happy people have trained their minds to remember and focus on and Velcro the positives, create new neural pathways in the brain for the positives. So I'm going to share with you 3 steps that are super simple, but that anyone can do to create new neural pathways in the brain for the positive. Okay. And these are all scientifically based. Number 1, be on the lookout for the good. We get 2 billion bits of information every second, and we are only perceiving a very small fraction of it, and we're only perceiving what we're used to seeing. So what we need to do is train ourselves to be on the lookout for the good. One of the women I interviewed for Happy for No Reason pretends that she's the Academy Awards committee. And her job is every day to give out 5 Academy Awards. So she might be on a walk and she sees a really cute little dog and she goes, "Oh, that dog gets my cutest dog of the day award." I have a new puppy, so it would be my puppy getting the cutest dog of the day award. Um, or she sees a sunset and that's the most beautiful sunset award, whatever. So you're getting 5 awards and you're on the lookout for it. And by the way, if you have kids, great game to play with them. So that's step number
Mm.
1. Step number 2 is savor the good for at least 20 seconds. They say that it takes at least 20 seconds for the good to sink in deeply enough to start to create those new neural pathways in the brain. It doesn't take anywhere near as long for the negative to sink in because we are more used to it. So you need to savor it. If you see a beautiful sunset, you say, "Oh my gosh," you focus on it for 20 seconds and take it in like you're digesting a beautiful meal. Or if you see a cute dog, you go up to the owner and you say, "Your dog gets my cutest dog of the day award." So that you're having conversation about it and it lasts for 20 seconds. And then the third step is to go for a 3-to-1 ratio. 3 positives to every 1 negative. Now you don't want to beat yourself up for the negatives because they're automatic. It's just going to happen. But what you want to do is when you notice it, you shift to 3 positives. Now, that's not to say that we sweep anything under the rug. We're not into sweeping the negatives under the rug. It does mean we focus on what we need to do to address anything that might be up in our lives. But if it's that old habitual, downward spiral thinking, that's what you shift with 3 positives.
So you get rid of your Debbie Downer. Remember Debbie Downer from Saturday Night Live?
I do remember Debbie
Oh my
Downer.
God, I love Debbie Downer. Cracks me up. But Debbie Downer, whatever good you find, she's going to find a way to say, well, children were enslaved to create that beautiful crocheted thing you love. Whatever it is, she's going to find a way to destroy it. Yes, we have the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. We all do. All of you listening, whatever you may think about Marci or me, we have them too. We do. And the thing is to make that decision. I love the savoring, Marci, that you talked about, because when we make that decision, like I just bought another piece of art and I'm looking at it. I love it. Elizabeth Rydell, we focusing on that, that's why it's right there. It makes me so happy. And just focusing on it and pausing, choosing to pause and take it in and feel gratitude, I think is so incredibly powerful. And actually just saying that, I start to get the tingles. I call them the God bumps.
That's what
But
I call them too.
oh,
God
really?
bumps.
Yeah, I love that. I get them. And so it's about us managing our energy, because
Mhm.
I could just as easily focus on where the cat threw up,
Right.
I've got 4 rescues, Marci, so I'm with you. I want to see your puppy, by the way. You must show us by the end of this interview. Can we see the puppy?
She's actually not here right now.
Oh, no.
She's with somebody else while I'm doing the interview. So
Oh, what kind of dog is she, by the
she's
way?
a mini golden doodle.
Oh, my Lord.
She's
Oh, my
four and
God.
a half months old.
Oh, do you get any sleep?
Yeah, she sleeps through the night. She's fabulous.
All right.
Just
You've obviously impacted her with all your happiness as well.
she's amazing. It's a love fest we have going
Oh,
on.
I love
I
that.
mean, puppy love.
It is puppy love. They have no filters like we do.
Right.
They
Right.
haven't put up all those big moats, and put the crocodiles
Right.
into the water there so that people stay away, like sometimes we do as an adult. Well, this is so powerful, this part of the mind. And so we've got so far 2 areas. We've got we talked about the 7, but we've talked so far about the body and the mind. So how about the others?
Why don't we talk a little bit about purpose? Because I
Mm.
think since this is for business and entrepreneurs and all, I think that's a really good one. I believe that we are all on the planet for a specific purpose. It's not an accident that we're here. I think our purpose can change throughout our lives, but it's really for us to look at what is calling me right now.
Mm.
There's a beautiful Howard Thurman quote that says, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." So I believe that we all need to come alive with what it is that we're doing. And as I said, it can change. And I'll give you a short story about this, an example. Um, my the happiest person I ever knew in my life was my father. My father
Oh,
was the epitome of happy for no reason. That's how I learned what happiness really was. Even though he didn't know how to share it with me, he was a great model, but he didn't have the same biochemistry I did. I mean, I inherited my mom's side.
mm,
So anyway, my dad was a dentist, and he loved being a dentist. But at 72, he retired. And we were all very worried about him, because what happens to people when they retire? Well, when they lose their sense of passion or meaning or purpose in life, they tend to get sick and they die. It's not that they're suddenly older, it's that they have lost that meaning in life. Well, my dad knew about that. And he said, well, that's not going to happen to me. So he analyzed what he loved about being a dentist. And he realized that what he loved about being a dentist was working with his hands in intricate ways and being an artist. He thought dental work was artwork. So at age 72, he took up his newest profession, needlepoint. And he became a master needle pointer. He won awards throughout all of California, and he loved it. He would go into they renovated my sister's bedroom into the needlepoint room, and he would go in and put on his dental magnifying glasses in the morning and start working. He worked away all day, and he at the last one he started, he was 85, and it was
mm.
his biggest one ever. It was big, and it was very intricate. And I went home and I to visit him, and I said, Dad, this is your biggest one ever. How long is this going to take you to finish? And he looked at me, he was very methodical. He said, honey, I figured it out. And the pace that I'm currently going, it's going to take me 4 years to complete. This was an 85-year-old man starting a 4-year project. Did he finish it? Absolutely. And it hung proudly in my parents' bedroom until my mom passed away. And it's now hanging proudly in my living room. And, my dad was the example of happy for no reason. He woke up every morning and said, every day that I'm breathing is a good day. And he did that till he passed away at 91. So
Mm.
having a purpose, feeling that you are doing your passion or purpose, or that what you are doing is en route to your passion and purpose. I started off, I knew I wanted to be a speaker from the time I was 13, and went and saw my first inspirational speaker, Zig Ziglar. And I said, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I went home and told my parents I wanted to be a speaker. This was back in 1971, so this was
Mhm.
the early days of speaking. By the way, for those of you who are doing quick math, I'll do it for you. I'm 66. So, anyway, I go home, I say, I want to be a speaker. My parents wanted me to be a dental hygienist because my dad was a dentist. But my mom teased with me. She said, honey, you sure talk enough. You might as well get paid for it. So there's no way to get training as a speaker other than I got an MBA in training and development. And the only job I could get, I thought I'll start off as a corporate trainer. The only job I could get initially was a job teaching business writing. I
Mm.
hated writing. I thought, this is not what I want to do. I didn't feel like I was a good writer, but it was the only job I could get to pay the bills. Well, do you know that for 5 years, I learned how to write by teaching business writing? And that was the perfect training for me to go on and write all the books that I write. Like, it's as though there was a divine plan that was beyond my plan. And so sometimes we may not be doing exactly what we want to be doing, but it's en route to what it is we want to be doing.
I love that. And, really, it's about the quality of being that we bring to whatever we're doing. Because I really believe you can be a cosmetologist, you can be a janitor, you can be a speaker, you can be an author, you can be whatever you want to be, as long as you bring the quality of being that you want to exhibit in the world. Like, how do you want to be in the world? Do you want to be kind? Do you want to be loving? Do you want to be joyful? Or you want to be Debbie Downer?
I love that, because for me, what I always wanted to be was inspirational and activating. I wanted to activate people's potential. And even when I was teaching business writing, which doesn't seem like would be very joyous, I actually identified with, I'm here to inspire people and to activate the potential as writers for them. And that made it fun. Fun is a value that I have. So we did games, and while you're teaching commas and semicolons, I did my best to make it fun. We did like game show stuff. I wanted to be a game show host at one point in my life. So we did game show stuff in the classes. So you bring what is your qualities, as you said, Barnsley, to whatever it is that you're doing.
And that is so important to know. You said fun. By the way, we share that one. Fun is one of mine as well as lifelong learning, creativity, kindness, and service, family. And I mean family of creation, not family of origin. I mean,
Yes.
the family we create around us, the people we choose,
Yes.
as you said, the garden that we choose to have around us.
I call it my soul family.
Yes,
My
yes,
soul
they are the
family.
soul family. And this, as we think here, you all, you know, how is it that you are populating your garden? And how is it that you're taking care of this house with the pillars and the roof of purpose? And I love your story about your dad really reinventing his purpose
That's right.
from being, being an artist with dentistry to being an artist in needlepoint. You know, have you read, Marci? There's a great book, Greg Lavoie Callings. Have you read that? You would love it.
No, I've heard of it. I thank you. I will pick that up. That's
Oh,
wonderful.
you will be all over that book. But what I
Great.
love is when I heard him do a seminar. I mean, he must have been in his 70s, late 70s. He was on his next calling. And I'm in my 50s now, and I totally see it. Like this children's book and the love that I have for children and teenagers is coming out more and more in my work. So I'm really clear it's not just about helping adults really get into six figures and more with their businesses, big-hearted people to make a big difference in the world. It's about showing that to children all around us so they realize they don't have to be in a cubicle that they hate, doing a job they hate for somebody else.
Yes, and I love this point that you're bringing up because I think this is very important for business. If somebody asked Warren Buffett, why was he so incredibly successful? And he said, "Oh, that's so easy for me to answer. It's because I say no to 99.999% of everything that comes my way." Which creates the possibility for the yes, for what's aligned with the soul. Can I share a quick story about that in my own
Yes,
world?
beautiful.
This is the sacred no. I was in 2013. I was taking a course with one of my dear friends and mentors, and now she's a co-teacher with me in my program, Your Year of Miracles, Lynn Twist. And Lynn Twist wrote The Soul of Money. And I was taking a program with her on money. And I had a coach in the program, and I made a commitment to the coach that I wasn't going to do work that I hated. And no sooner had I made that commitment than just a few days later, I get an email out of the blue from a client that I'd worked with before offering me a $500,000 contract to speak many times over the next couple of years in China. Now, there was only one problem with this. I really hated that travel. I did not like going to China. I did not want to do this contract at all. And because I had just made a commitment to this coach, I said no. That was the biggest, boldest no I've ever said because I had no idea where that was going to fill in, a $500,000 contract. Less than a week after I said no, I'm standing in my kitchen with my assistant. We were making lunch together, and she said to me, "So-and-so has started a mentoring program." And a light bulb went off in my mind. And I went, "Oh my God, mentoring. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to mentor people." And I said, "What am I supposed to mentor people in?" I'd already done happiness, and that was going great. But I said, "You know what? I am living a miraculous life. I'm going to mentor people in how to live a miraculous life." And we decided we would start off and do this program for 8 women. I said, "I'll take 8 women." And do you know, it was a high-end program. 1,100 people applied. And
Wow.
1,100 people. And I said, "Well, I've got to do a program more for the masses as well." And since then, since 2014, I have done every year a program called Your Year of Miracles. We have 5,000 people a year going through this program from 87 countries. And
Wow.
it's just amazing about living a miraculous life. And I will tell you, that came out of me saying a sacred no to what my soul said, this is not the next step for me. It's not that I'm not willing to do hard work. I am totally willing to do hard work. It was that there was a message that said no to this.
Oh, I really love that, because one thing I love to talk about is that we've got to repel the people that we can't work with and attract the ones we do want to work with. And in the same way, we've got to repel those things that we really don't want to do. Maybe we enjoyed them at one time, but we don't want to do them anymore. And be
Yes.
willing to say no to those. And we won't get it. Y'all have heard my story listening in. You know how I said no to the guy and the tenure track offer and started my business 24 years ago. Well, y'all know the longer version. Marci, I am looking at the time. And this time has flown by, and I have so enjoyed what you've shared with us. I want to make sure that we have a moment for you to have the opportunity to give something to the group, if you'd like to. And by the way, everybody listening, we have the coolest thing, so we don't need a link or anything. Marci, I'll get that from you afterwards. We have the freebie vault, the Bold Badass Business freebie vault, where everybody's goodies are. So all you do, everyone listening, is you go to bit.ly/free from Dr. B. And doctor is just DR. Free from Dr. B. I made it easy to remember. bit.ly/free from Dr. B. And you'll be able to access not just Marci's incredible things she's going to offer us, but all these gifts, thousands and thousands of dollars of gifts from amazing guests that we've had here. How cool is that?
So cool. I love that. So
Yeah.
I would be delighted to give a gift. That is my Happy for No Reason workbook. And what this is, it's all 21 of the happiness habits. So I'm giving you everything in there. And with each habit, you have an exercise or a practice that you can do. There's also an assessment in the beginning to see where you are on the Happy for No Reason continuum, and some amazing happiness quotes as well. So it's a 28-page Happy for No Reason workbook that I am delighted to offer to all of you. So you can use it to raise your own happiness at point, or for those in your family, you can share it and do it with people around you, your loved ones, people you work with.
How beautiful. Thank you so much for that gift. You all, you must go get it. So go to bit.ly/free from Dr. B. We'll have it up very shortly for you. And there are tons of other gifts you can get as well. But what a great thing to have that workbook or playbook to create happiness, because happiness rubs off on other people around you. You become a ripple of happiness in the world when you work on your own happiness. Just like you become a ripple of love when you work on loving yourself. So Marci, is there one more thing that you'd love to leave us with? I just feel like I want to have you say the end here.
I would. It actually has everything to do with what you just said about how we become a ripple of love. You know, people ask me, is it selfish to want to be happier? And I say it's the least selfish thing you can do, because when you're happier, it affects your family, your friends, your community, and ultimately the world. And so I will leave you with this Chinese proverb that sums up why I am so passionate about each of us being happy. It goes like this. It says, when there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there is harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there will be peace in this world. And my prayer and my wish for every single one of us is that we know that light in our own souls. And through that, we help create more peace here on this planet of ours.
Wow, who else has tears in their eyes? That is such a beautiful quote and the perfect way for us to end. And know that those of you listening, you're bold badasses already. And guess what? This happiness that you create and cultivate in yourself is going out and it's creating a huge ripple in the world, just as that quote that Marci just shared shows that. So thank you again, Marci. This has been Bold Badass Business. Those of you who've been listening, make sure you're here next week at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And we are going to have, if you're in another time zone, you figure it out. And we are going to have another incredible guest who will keep you moving forward on your journey with power and purpose. Bye all.